Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Michael Costa Show. This will be a continuation, or it will be the second edition of the Useful Idiot series, where yesterday I showed you how the anti-racist, or the anti-racists, I was going to say the anti-racist movement, but the anti-racists in general are useful idiots for the real racists and the white supremacists, because their ideas basically are very similar. Well, today, in the same spirit, I'll be showing you how Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, and Lebron James are useful idiots for the Chinese Communist Party. Now, yesterday, I should have shown you this yesterday, because some people don't exactly understand what useful idiot means. So I'll read you here the definition from Wikipedia. In political jargon, a useful idiot is a derogatory term for a person perceived as propagandizing for a cause without fully comprehending the cause's goals, and who is cynically used by the cause's leaders. So there it is. It's basically when some naive people fall for propaganda and then are used by these leaders of these movements or ideologues to further their agenda. So that's basically what a useful idiot is. It was popularized during the Cold War, and the term has often been attributed to Vladimir Lenin, a Soviet Union leader, dictator, if you will. Communist leader. But Wikipedia says here, but this attribution is unsubstantiated. So we're not sure if it's really attributed to Vladimir Lenin. But that is what a useful idiot is. So now let me start off with Justin Trudeau and how he's a useful idiot for the Chinese Communist Party. So as you all know, Canada is one, if not the country that has spent the most money during this pandemic. Anybody that runs a family budget or just a budget, excuse me, or has a family, knows that you just can't throw money at problems and expect them to be solved. And in general, Justin Trudeau thinks that's the case. So you just make it rain on a certain problem and that problem will go away by itself. Well, that's just not reality. And when you borrow so much money, when you live on the credit card, who do you think gains from this? Yes, the Chinese Communist Party, because a lot of this debt is being bought by the Chinese Communist Party. And just in interest payments, that is a lot of money. So let me read you a bit of his Bloomberg article about Justin Trudeau and his spending. Justin Trudeau was more committed to borrowing his way out of the COVID-19 crisis last year than almost any other leader in the developed world. What cushioned the blow of the pandemic? That cushioned the blow of the pandemic, but raises some hard questions about what Canada got for all that spending. The economy shrank 5.4% last year. Statistics Canada said Tuesday, the sharpest annual decline in the post-World War II era and the third straight year in which it underperformed the U.S. economy. That's despite Canadians receiving $20 in government transfers for every dollar of income lost, according to government data. So for every dollar I've lost because I've been out of work or have less work because of this pandemic, or the government gave me $20 for every dollar I lost. That's basically him buying votes and buying or selling debt to the Chinese Communist Party. Treated to larger handouts, Canadians mostly hoarded them, potentially opening Trudeau's government to criticism it has wasted money on programs that spread cash quickly but inefficiently. As one opposition lawmaker likes to put it, the government spent the most to achieve the least. That says it all right there. The government spend the most to achieve the least. And I just heard one of Trudeau's ministers this morning in a press conference comparing people that are criticizing the outlandish spending of the Canadian federal government to people criticizing firefighters using too much water to fight a fire. If that is not the stupidest thing I have heard in the last year of this pandemic, I don't know what I've heard that's stupider than that. She is basically comparing throwing money at a pandemic, wishing it would go away, to putting water on a fire to try to stop the spread of the fire. So that's what kind of stupid people we have in the Liberal federal government. And who wins in all this federal spending with money that we don't have, on borrowed money? Well, the Chinese Communist Party does. And that doesn't surprise me, because like I'm going to show you, Trudeau has been in a romantic love affair with China's dictatorship. But I'll get into that in a few. So the other day, there was a vote in Parliament where members of Parliament were to vote on whether to denounce China, the Chinese Communist Party's treatment of Muslims in China by putting them in concentration camps, internment camps, re-education camps, whatever you may call them. So there was this vote. And let me show you what happened in this vote. So here in the Associated Press, Canada's Trudeau and cabinet abstained from China genocide vote. Canada's House of Commons voted Monday to declare that China is committing genocide against more than 1 million Uyghurs in the western Xinjiang region, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his cabinet abstained from the vote. The non-binding motion passed 266 to 0, as virtually all but Trudeau and his cabinet voted for the measure that also called on the International Olympic Committee to move the 2022 Winter Olympics from Beijing. A senior government official said declaring something in Parliament is not going to adequately get results in China, and that work with international allies and partners is needed. The official spoke on condition of anonymity, as they were not authorized to speak publicly about the matter. So not only did Trudeau force his cabinet members to abstain from participating in this vote, he also muzzled them and told them they weren't allowed to talk about the vote or about the matter in general, the genocide in general. So that's, we're now starting to see the love affair that Trudeau has with China dictatorship, that he would love that he would have that power here in Canada. Not if we have anything to say about it. At least I hope so. It goes on. The main opposition parties supported the motion and controlled the majority of seats in the House of Commons. Trudeau's cabinet is made up of 37 Liberal lawmakers, including the Prime Minister. There are 154 lawmakers from Trudeau's Liberal Party in the House of Commons, and the rest of the Liberal lawmakers voted freely on the motion. So because they didn't want to look. It was, I got to admit, it was a smart move on his part. Because instead of making the whole party abstain from the vote, he let regular members, or backbench members, if you will, vote. But his cabinet, the important ones, weren't allowed to vote or speak on the matter because they were scared of what the Chinese Communist Party members of government were going to say about him. We certainly don't want to throw China under the bus, right? Let me go back to 2013 during a fundraiser, what Trudeau said. So in CTV News article, Trudeau under fire for expressing admiration for China, a basic dictatorship. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau met with criticism for the second time in as many days Friday after telling a Toronto fundraising crowd that he admired China's basic dictatorship. Speaking to a sold-out crowd of women, Trudeau was responding to a question about which nation's admiration he had most admired. Their liberal leader said, "There's a level of admiration I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green. We need to start investing in solar." So basically, Trudeau would love to have a dictatorship so he could turn the economy around on a dime and instill his socialist policies and basically take power and rights away from its citizens. So let me repeat that to be very clear of what Trudeau says and his admiration for the Chinese Communist Party. There's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say we need to go green, we need to start investing in solar. Like they need to have a dictatorship to instill policies or investments. But I digress. Let's move on to how Biden is a useful idiot for the Chinese Communist Party. So in the New York Post, February 17th, Biden says Uyghur genocide is part of China's different norms. President Biden is dismissing the genocide against the Uyghur population in China, dubbing the mass internment a different norm, despite the State Department this month responding to atrocities in the camps following reports of systemic rape and torture. That's what's going on in these camps. Systemic rape and torture. And this is what Biden and Trudeau are defending. The commander-in-chief made the remarks after being asked during his CNN town hall Tuesday evening about his recent conversation with his Chinese counterpart, starting his response by relaying Xi's justification for the abuses. If you know anything about Chinese history, it has always been the time when China has been victimized by the outer world is when they haven't been unified at home, Biden began. So the central, while vastly overstated, the central principle of Xi Jinping is that there must be a unified, tightly controlled China. And he uses this rationale for China, a nation that has faced a wave of international scrutiny over the past few years, relating to its activities in dismantling democracy in Hong Kong and its refusal to accept responsibility for negligence and a lack of transparency at the onset of the coronavirus outbreak, has not let global tension stop its mass internment of Uyghurs in Xinjiang province. President Biden continued in his response that he is not going to speak out against the Chinese Communist Party, belligerent actions in Hong Kong against the Uyghurs or in Taiwan. I point out to him, no American president can be sustained as a president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States. Bullshit. Sorry for my language. BS. Because the president of the United States only reflects half of the nation's values. Because that's how divided the United States are. So, please, spare me your BS, President Biden. The U.S. president continued, and so the idea that I am not going to speak out against what he's doing in Hong Kong, what he's doing with the Uyghurs in Western mountains in China and Taiwan, trying to end the one China policy by making it forceful. She gets it. Culturally, there are different norms that each country and their leaders are expected to follow. The norms in China, as shown in a recent BBC News expose, include systemic torture and rape occurring in Uyghur concentration camps. So this is Biden's cultural norms that he says China has. That's their norms. And they're different sets of values. Is basically include systemic torture and rape occurring in Uyghur concentration camps. So basically there I've shown you how Justin Trudeau, Canada's Prime Minister, member of the G7, And Joe Biden, President of the United States, leader of the free world, defending Chinese Communist Party's regime and the atrocities that they are doing to their Muslim population, some Uyghurs, some may call them, in the mountains, he said, just because they're cultural norms. Disgusting. That's what it is. So now the last subject of today's Useful Idiot series is LeBron James. And that disclaimer, LeBron James plays for the Los Angeles Lakers, which are my favorite team. And like I've said many times, I respect LeBron James as a basketball player. He's arguably one of the two best basketball players to ever play the game. And I respect him as that. Now, as a public figure, I don't respect him at all. And I'll show you why. So, for you that don't know about this whole thing with Zlatan Ibrahimovic and LeBron, I'll give you a quick recap of the whole situation. So the soccer star Ibrahimovic was in the news this week after criticizing LeBron James over James's socio-political activism. LeBron is phenomenal at what he's doing, but I don't like when people have some kind of status, they go do politics at the same time. Ibrahimovic said per ESPN, do what you're good at. Do the category you do. I play football because I'm the best at playing football. I don't do politics, Ibrahimovic added. If I would be a political politician, I would do politics. That is the first mistake people do when they become famous and they become in a certain status. Stay out of it. Just do what you do best because it doesn't look good. So that's what Zlatan said during an interview commentating on LeBron James' political activism. Remember that carefully. On LeBron James's political activism. Partisan political activism. So James clapped back at Ibrahimovic's comments on Friday after a win over the Portland Trail Blazers. LeBron, here in a tweet by The Athletic, LeBron James responds to Zlatan's statement on staying out of politics. There's no way I would ever just stick to sports because I understand how this platform and how powerful my voice is. He's so pretentious, unbelievable, self-righteous prick. I would never shut up about things that's wrong, the four-time MVP said. I preach about my people. I preach about equality, social injustice, racism, systemic voter suppression, things that go on in our community. He goes on to say about Zlatan. It's funny that he said that. James added about Ibrahimovic. I believe in like 2018, he was the same guy who said when he was back in Sweden talking about the same thing. Because his last name wasn't a certain last name. That he felt there was some racism going on when he was out on the pitch. I speak from a very educated mind. That's funny. First time I read that, I thought it was satire. So I'm kind of the wrong guy to actually go at because I do my homework. Again, pretentious, self-righteous prick. So then his buddy, okay, so let me just comment on this first, on James's response. First of all, Zlatan commented on a personal experience that he had. Never made it political, never made it partisan. He talked about about a personal experience of his. That's not what LeBron James does. Okay? LeBron James, what he does is participate in political partisanship. He makes it partisan. He chooses a side. He makes it about politics. He doesn't make it about the issue. He says he preaches about my people, about equality, social injustice, racism, BS. What he preaches about is political rhetoric. That's what he preaches about. And he claims to be educated. please, if he would be educated, he would realize the difference between speaking about a personal experience and spewing political rhetoric like James does. But I digress. Baron Davis, a former player of the Los Angeles Clippers, so jumped in to defend LeBron. He says, Zlatan, stay your ASS out of LA. Davis tweeted, Galaxy sucks anyways, and you dumb as hell. Take that stolen Zuhan look and give it back to Sandler. Now let the king speak. That's funny. Whatever. It's okay. It's all banter, and it's actually a bit funny. So I have no problem with what Baron Davis said, other than the stay your ass. Oh, sorry again. Out of LA, because nobody's gonna tell Zlatan what to do. And Baron Davis better sit down, because one side kick to the head from Zlatan, then he'd be out of commission for a while. But whatever. So that's the story up to now. Well, up to now, no, because Zlatan, two other people, Zlatan came back and responded to that, and somebody else blasted LeBron for that statement, for that response. So let me get to that a bit. Washington Post. I just wanted to show you how Washington Post frames the story. LeBron James again told to stick to sports. Shuts down stalker star Zlatan Ibrahimovic suggestion. So this is how the Washington Post framed the story. That someone, a white man, basically, is what they're insinuating, is telling LeBron again to stick to sports. But whatever. What I like is Kobe Covington, not known to keep his tongue in his mouth, and not known for not being afraid to speak his mind. And this where comes into action LeBron as China's as a useful idiot for the Chinese Communist Party. So Kobe Covington says, when are you going to speak up about Hong Kong, King James? Oh, that's right, you can't. You're a Chinese finger puppet. You make millions playing a kid's game and talk about social justice, but have no problem paying Chinese women in sweatshops pennies to make your products, slimeball. That says it all. Because LeBron was already asked about this, if he had anything to say about concentration camps in China or the Hong Kong situation, where they're basically taking away freedoms from Hong Kongers. Well, he answered, you know what, this is what he answered. He told them that he will not comment on another country's politics. So that tells you everything right there, folks. If he was really preaching equality and social justice, then he would do it for these cases around the world. And at the same time, he admits, by saying that he will not dwell into another country's politics, that what he does is dwell into his country's politics. So he's not talking from a personal experience point. One of the richest black men in America, saying he's oppressed. Please. He has no problem talking about politics at home, but he won't dwell into another country's political policies, if you will. Like what's happening with the Muslims in China, or how much people get paid to make his shoes. So spare me your BS. You're nothing but a hypocritical prick. Self-righteous, pretentious prick. But most dangerous is the fact that you're a useful idiot for China. Just like Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, and many others, defending the Chinese Communist Party and defending their atrocities that they're doing to their own people. So as Latin was talking about personal experience, all you do is spew political rhetoric. So spare me your hypocritical BS. All right, guys. That was my show for today. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you soon.